Shadow Minister for Health and Social Care, Labour's Liz Kendall, joins me in the studio. Lovely to see you this morning.
Nice to see you too.
I wonder if I might just get a little word from you on that situation in Solihull. I mean, I cannot begin to imagine what the parents of those poor children are going through, but we just need to remind our kids, don't we? You know, the ice might look thick, the ice might look safe, but it may well not be.
I think it is every parent's absolute worst nightmare. I've just had a boy myself, and first thing I thought when I saw this this morning was imagining how I would feel and how important it is to be careful and to warn children. But right now, my heart goes out to them, and to all their family and friends. You must be devastated too.
They will be, and congratulations to you as well.
Thank
you. Let's talk about the strikes, however, and of course what we are seeing today, Unison members in Northern Ireland will be going on strike. In addition, we've also had that official request from the government to bring in the military to drive ambulances. It's all looking pretty grim this winter when it comes to the state of the health service, isn't it?
I mean, it really is. We know already we've got 7 million patients on the waiting list, 400,000 waiting more than a year. It's not acceptable. So that's why I think that Steve Barclay, the Health Secretary, should accept the offer from the RCN and Unison, this 11th hour offer. We will pause the strikes, they said, if you meet with us to discuss pay, or if you don't want to meet with us directly, go through the arbitration service, ACAS. I personally think it's unforgivable that he isn't meeting with them, because they've said, we will pause the strikes if you meet with us. He needs to do that, and he needs to do that today.
If Labour were in government at the moment, what would they be offering nurses?
Well, we have always wanted to see our nurses get fair pay. When we were in government, we made sure that that's what happened. But I'm not going to promise you or your viewers today pluck a figure out of nowhere, because God only knows what the state of the economy is going to be in 2 years' time, and we have only made promises when we've showed how we'll pay for them. I think nurses deserve that, but we would absolutely meet, discuss and negotiate with them, and we would always show how we would pay for that.
Sure, but don't nurses also deserve to know, and the general public deserve to know, that whether or not Labour would be offering more money than is on the table from the government?
Of course we want to see nurses have a fair pay rise. But I believe if you make a promise, you should be able to stick to it. And that's why we can't, as I said, pluck a figure out of nowhere. But let's just take a step. How can you
then criticise the government for the way in which they are behaving?
Because they're not even meeting the nurses. That's what I'm criticising them for. You know, when we were in government, we regularly met doctors, nurses to discuss all of these issues. I can't believe they aren't just doing that. But can we just take a step back about why we are in this situation in the first place? It is not just that the government crashed the economy with their mini-budget, their disastrous mini-budget. It's that for 12 long years, we've had no or pathetically weak economic growth. So we haven't had the money to put into our public services, including for a fair pay rise. That is the reason we're in this mess, not simply because of the current situation, but because of this long record. That's what the government needs to change.
OK, but when it comes to pay, and I'm sorry to keep labouring this point, when Labour says it would negotiate with the nursing unions, you seem to be implying that you would, in essence, be ripping up the independent pay review body recommendations. Is that correct?
No, we always use the recommendations of the independent pay review. But negotiations have always happened between employers and employees. You have to have those discussions. That's what the government has failed to take action on. I don't want to see those strikes happening in the NHS. You know, I used to run the ambulance service network that represents all ambulance trusts. I know that paramedics, those are 999 calls, they don't go into this for the money, they go into it for a vocation. But my hospital in Leicester has got a food bank for nurses. That's unacceptable. We need proper funding for our public services by growing the economy, and we need a government that will actually sit down and start those discussions.
Why then is the Shadow Health Secretary picking a fight with the doctors' unions, the nurses' unions and so on and so forth? I mean, a remarkable interview that he gave to the Sunday Telegraph yesterday. You know, this is Labour, the party of Labour, you know, being openly critical about these organisations, saying that they are vested interests and so on and so forth. I mean, politically, what on earth is he up to?
Now, actually, the headline, if you read the actual story, not the headline, it's very different. Look, Wes is absolutely right to say We need more GPs. That's why Labour's plan will double the number of medical school places funded by getting rid of the non-dom tax status. But in return for that, we also need to see changes. I don't want people waiting for hours on the phone to get a GP appointment. People should be able to have the right to see their doctor face-to-face if they want that. That's what Wes was saying. That is not an...
That's not what the unions heard, to be fair.
Well, that's what he said. I think it is not unreasonable for people to be able to get to see their GP and to be able to see them face-to-face. I'm sure that that's what your viewers will think too. So GPs are under phenomenal pressure. That's why we have spelt out how we will double the number of medical school places, including for people who want to be GPs. But in return, we've got to be able to get... You know, my parents have struggled. They live in Sussex. Ringing to try and see the GP, and the GP says, unless it's an absolute emergency, we can't see. That's not right. That's not right. But we need to change the way things work.
But just a word then on you know, people working in the health professions at the moment. Now, you saw what it was like on your way into the studio this morning. The pavements will ice up. People will be falling in huge numbers. There will be people who require care, not necessarily urgent, not necessarily life and limb care, but they will require care that will not be able to get it on these strike days because of the strike. Do you think that that should serve not to focus the minds of those in government, but focus minds of those who are working on the front line?
They really are focused. You know, if you speak to anybody who's been working in the NHS, particularly during COVID, they have given their all. They've risked their own lives by doing that. They are absolutely pushed to breaking point here. As I said, my hospital having to have a food bank, that's not right. You know, there are already huge staff shortages. And the thing is, this can be solved. It can be solved, but the government needs to get round the table and sort it out.
Congratulations again on the wee one. Liz Kendall, thanks for being with us.